Welcome everybody to the DC New 52 review. I want to thank you for tuning into this episode. I am your host, Pauly DC, and let's get into another one of these things. Today, I will review Green Arrow Vol.1. It was titled The Midas Touch, and it was written by Dan Jurgens, JT Krul, and Keith Giffen, with art by none other than George Perez. And the first 6 issues were released between November 2011 to April of 2012. The one and only Green Arrow, Oliver Queen, was created by Mort Weisinger and George Papp, making his opening appearance in More Fun Comics number 73, November 1941, the same one as Aquaman. Since those early days, GA has been through it all. Multiple Justice League memberships, many partners and proteges that share his archery skill, a legit Robin Hood iteration of his origin. The Emerald Archer was even killed off in a number 100 to 101 issue of his ongoing series, but in a never-before-seen decision by DC, the character got revived in a 2001 story arc called Quiver. The New 52 version of Oliver, on the other hand, is pretty much young and from scratch. No kids, only one former sidekick who is hardly ever mentioned by him, zero relationship to longtime lover Black Canary, and he is based in Seattle, Washington, since Star City was 86th from this entire event. So, I think it is time I start discussing what was included. Issue number 1 begins at Queen Industries with Big Boss Emerson, who's got a robot-like hand similar to that of Jet Black from Cowboy Bebop, and he's hounding Oliver, who runs a branch of the company called Q-Core, over keeping the whole enterprise above its competitors like Holt Industries, Wayne Tech, and LexCorp. Now, obviously there's many more major one-off companies that are never really mentioned at any time. Tycho from Supergirl, Zithertech from Firestorm, just to name a few out of the Volume 1s, and this lack of continuity kinda makes things shrug-worthy at times if you were reading through the whole event. Anyway, Green Arrow is in Paris, tracking a group of D-list meta-teen villains with help from one of his 2 assistants, Naomi. She's a hacker type, and they discuss how this group is social media famous from posting their crimes online. Funny when you see types of literature like this in hindsight, huh? Arrow gets to work on taking down a trio of the group, first commandeering the yacht they're using, and then with a bunch of his trick arrows, which I admittedly like to see what writer-to-writer comes up with. He pretty easily deals with a Goro Shiva knockoff called Doppelganger, a useless meathead named Dynamix, just some punches and ice is all it takes to handle him, and lastly the I don't even bother to find out what he's shooting from his hands guy, Supercharge. Once returned to the US, we see that Ollie's not only kind of an a-hole to Emerson, but also to his work secretary Adrian and second GA assistant Jax, his weapon maker, who was handpicked personally because he apparently doesn't get any weird or suspicious enjoyment from making things that hurt and can kill people. That stuff will do what it does whether he likes it or not, Oliver. He still had a hand in it. Have you ever heard about Sarah Winchester? Things then wrap up with Supercharge and Dynamix being sprung from jail by the leader of their group called Rush, along with 7 others in the gang that are named, no clue. Like I said, these are F-tier villains. Issue number 2 starts with Green Arrow fighting 2 twin girls from the meta-teen villain squad named Lime and Light, accompanied with awkward talk of public exposing, sucking, and getting nasty. We'll just get right along though to him defeating them and us having a quick chuckle at the girls not even being able to use their names in a good catchphrase, saying "step into the spotlight" to Green Arrow and not into the limelight. Yikes. Ollie is next seen briefly having an even more tense conversation this time about their company with Emerson, And then things cut to the meta-teen villain group with leader Rush welcoming some wannabe initiate named Alpha, while some of the others are actually given names here, like Core, Stunner, TKO, and that's it. Did the writers even care? Anywho, the actual reason Alpha got invited there is because Rush and the others go on to brutally kill him, which gets posted online as a way for them to call out Green Arrow, and he sees all of that with Naomi in a high-tech computer room. Oliver then meets up with Jax to pick up some new gear that will be required exactly for what he needs coming up, and very shortly after Arrow is on the streets, a fight ensues with him having to take on Rush and Stunner, which presents him the most difficult challenge thus far, but it was actually all the beginning of a seriously obvious setup. I mean, I know he ain't no Batman, but sheesh. Issue number 3 mostly consists of a huge fight scene between Green Arrow and Rush's gang in front of a modern-day Roman Colosseum crowd, aka viewers on the internet, and he's really only able to take down the freaky hairy one before being cornered. There's no way though he was losing to this L tier list of villains, and he begins to put them down one by one with help from Jax and Naomi, Stunner first, then the trio he already defeated in Perez, and lastly the blue-haired hooker-looking one. What about the mini gold juggernaut guy? Meh, don't ask me. This has set up a final showdown with Rush, who clearly got his ab workout from the Spartans, and midway through, Green Arrow has to deal with TKO, allowing Rush to get a few hits in on him, but that's about it since he goes on to lose the fight in a very prompt manner afterwards. A simple knockout dart was all it took. Emerson was briefly seen in his office building up some more resentment toward Oliver while looking at a picture of who I assume to be a dead son, and this sets up things for the following day as Oliver checks in with Naomi and Jax to make sure the lot of S-tier villains are under proper lockup, and then has a big press conference for Queen Industries to reassure everyone that the company is on the up and up. Now, I know he's a superhero and all, but his business problems seem like they could be handled if he showed up to work like twice a week. Anyhow, this speech from Ollie gains him no points with Emerson, instead he just insults him. Damn. Things then wrap up with a mysterious girl in red who's got a pass to Oliver watching him on TV, and she's with some kind of unnatural looking person. Issue number 4 opens on Green Arrow taking down a low-level crime group called the Street Knights, but not before getting lured into a crappy setup resulting in a woman's high heel up his chin. Aside from that being quite embarrassing for him, the whole gang suddenly dies due to flame-combusting craniums with no further explanation. I'm not even surprised at this point. The next day, as Oliver Queen, he's at Q-Core throwing Secretary Adrian into all of his problems, discussing business with Jax, and of course, getting yelled at by Emerson. The mystery lady in red is seen again, this time talking about Ollie and wanting a confrontation with Green Arrow, but later on, after sneaking into Q-Core with her unknown partner, she catches Oliver about to leave with Adrian and appears rather unclear on which side of him she wants to kill. Regardless of this, after a helping distraction from Naomi, Ollie escapes, and shortly after, Green Arrow is able to arrive, kicking off another great fight scene. That's one thing I'll say that was impressive throughout here. And as this one progresses outside, the new female foe is referred to as Blood Rose. Very edgy. She also goes on to show that she's not human, and even with the strength and agility used, she ends the battle by taking off. Alrighty then. Issue number 5 first has Blood Rose speaking with her partner, who gets a bit of a face reveal here, and again she seems unclear as to her motives toward Green Arrow and Oliver Queen. Speaking of him, he's at Q-Core nearly getting caught by Adrian green-handed, I suppose, but instead is just seen in his underwear, which they both seem uncomfortably okay with. She then goes on to show Ollie that Emerson is flexing his CEO status in the company, making her veto approved, which is just a fancy Latin word meaning she can deny any of his decisions as said by Naomi and Jax. Next, we get a flashback to a feeble-looking scientist being sensually tricked into creating a new treatment for toxic waste, and then due to an incident, he was left a toxic monster with mentions of Alec Holland. No, just no. This is not on par with Swamp Thing. Nonetheless, that's this guy's origin, a toxic-looking skeleton and partner with a crush on Blood Rose. Good thing Atomic Skull already belongs to DC. This rotting heap has found his way back to Q-Core looking for Green Arrow right as Oliver and Adrian are leaving together, wherein Ollie surely sacrifices any courageous thoughts she had toward him so he can switch into his Arrow attire. Actually, wouldn't this surely indicate to her that he's GA? The guy shows up seconds after your boss dips out? No? Maybe? Whatever. Green Arrow takes on the Toxic Skull, who shows nothing can touch him here without basically melting down toxically, but then that begs the question of how is he wearing a trench coat, or was holding things in past scenes, or walking without melting into the ground? I don't know and I don't care. After wasting many arrows with 0 damage done and then nearly being melted down into Gore Arrow, he's able to use an ultrasonic weapon on his adversary, which renders him unconscious. However, seconds later, Green Arrow suddenly is snuck up on by Blood Rose with a gun to the back of the head. Issue number 6 is the last one in this book, first beginning with Green Arrow getting shot in the face by Blood Rose before she takes off with her partner, who by now is clearly seen to be infatuated with her. Really not doing any favors for Green Arrow regarding people who don't take the character seriously. In an utterly shocking reveal though, he is not actually dead, and goes on to meet up with Jax and Naomi for medical attention while saying he once met a merman, a reference to Aquaman that we'll get a bit more on in Justice League Volume 2. Plus, the three find out here that Blood Rose's non-human classification is robot. Important for the final fight that goes down right after Blood Rose sorta maybe reveals that she's a rather bleeding edge robot that Queen Industries built on Ollie's behalf, but he then abandoned and forgot about. Tisk tisk. Arrow is on the scene in explosive manner, but even with this element of surprise, he's got a real hard time dealing with both enemies, especially because the Toxic Avenger is in total berserk mode, and while their boss viciously fights for his life, the two sidekicks are betting on what arrows are most effective. At least you're having a good time. GA's best move is using chemical and more explosion arrows on Blood Rose since she's not a person, right as she reveals her partner's name on the 5th last page of this book, which is Midas. You know, like King Midas, who had things turn to gold when touched by him, but here anything this guy touches turns to putrid black waste. With Blood Rose basically out of the picture, Midas stops fighting Green Arrow and sets off a timed bomb that allows him to escape with his partner's, parts, saying Metropolis is where they'll go, never to be seen by us again. Oliver then decides to not even follow up a bit on the walking biohazard that's extremely dangerous, and instead he has a celebratory beer on a rooftop while being spied on by an unknown source. Alright. As far as the plot is concerned, let me just say it now and say it quick. Green Arrow didn't get the best start here. Underwhelming as a hero and 0 charisma as Oliver. Forgettable characters like in Adrian's case who never made it into Volume 2, and forgotten characters like Blood Rose and Midas. Jax, Naomi, and Emerson were okay regarding the Queen Industries side of things, and speaking of that, One thing I think would have worked really well was having Ollie and Michael Holt, owner of Holt Industries, be rivals in business but allies in crime fighting. Mr. Terrific was in Los Angeles, GA in Seattle. They could have had a whole West Coast network going on. Instead, we got our titular hero fighting friggin' social media crazed teens. Which did have a good message though, being now over 10 years ago in all the wrong people getting the biggest internet attention. Pretty spot on. For the dialogue, it's clunky at best and atrocious at worst. Even with this comic having the benefit of premiering around the same time as the early Arrow TV show seasons, regarded to be the best ones, in terms of seriously put together scripts, I wouldn't be surprised if many preferred the live action. Jax and Naomi's witty back and forth along with Midas's baroque and stutter speech did add a little extra. Bloodrose and Adrian helped a bit in their interactions with our main character, while if I had to choose who had the best things to say, it would be Emerson in his limited page time. Finally, for the art, it's perfectly passable. You take an already talented team and then add George Perez, that's gonna garner good results. Very well laid out fight scenes, character portions. One thing to question though would be Arrow's costume. Anyone who knows what Oliver looks like could figure out he's a soup. And also, Naomi's overall look change in issue 6 compared to the other 5 was a bit jarring. That's gonna conclude this episode for today, and if you watched until the end here, I want to personally thank you for that, and to please like, share, and subscribe. Please follow me on all my social media platforms, and to please join me next time for more DC New 52 content.